All right, so I think let's get started. It's 7:35. I wanted to have the mechanics introduce themselves, and if they want to talk about what kind of cycling traveler they are. There's different kinds, different modes. There is no wrong way, and you will always find your way. And also that way is always changing. So you might start out one way and then you'll start turning into something else. I expect at some point I'm going to be wearing like SPD sandals with socks and maybe on a recumbent. I'm not going to fight that if it happens. So just like allow yourself to bloom into the cycle tourist that you were meant to be. So I'm gonna popcorn. So we do the popcorn thing where you say someone's name, popcorn Jamie, and then when after Jamie goes, they popcorn next person. Who has to go? Okay.
Hi, I'm Jamie. In terms of like bike touring at the moment, I'm a bit of a day tripper. I just kind of do shorter trips at the moment. I haven't really got much time for doing longer tours, but I really hope I can maybe this summer. I cycle on my Jenni. It's a steel bike, no suspension or anything. And yeah, I kind of over-prepare for everything, so I take more things than I usually end up needing. But yeah, and I love route planning. I love planning the routes that I'm going to take. I love maps and things. Yeah, I will popcorn Hayley. Hayley, you're up.
Hiya, I'm Hayley. So the kind of adventure tourer, so I'm an adventure tourer. So I went into the deep end, having done no overnight bikepacking trips. I've done a little bit of hiking, walking trip, camping before. I mean, I just went headfirst into doing 20,000 kilometers from the UK to Australia. It didn't start off like that. The first intention was to get out of Europe, so get to Turkey, and then just go from there. And I just kept going east. And there was a reason. Well, I actually missed my flight home from Hong Kong while I was in the airport. So I had to rebook the flight, and then that pushed me to go to Australia to earn money. And then the pandemic interrupted all of that a little bit. So I had to come back after a year in Australia. And yeah, I started out being like quite regimented and planning like each day. Yeah, I'm going to do 50 miles today, 60 miles the next day, rest day, and so on. And it's just slowly changed into becoming go with the flow, see what happens, see what the people recommend, see how I feel on the day. And yeah, that's the beauty of touring, you adapt. So I'm going to popcorn over to Amy.
Hello, I'm Amy. I have not done any I've not done any touring. A bit like Jamie, I've just gone off on day trips. But even that, not that much. I would like to do more. I'm hoping spring I can do a lot more of that. So I'm kind of here to learn as well from my fellow colleagues so that I'm a bit more prepared for spring. Oh, popcorn and Sylvie.
Hi, I'm Sylvie. I'm the one that really hasn't done much like big touring or anything like really long distance. I'm more like a BMXer. But I did work as a cycling instructor during COVID, and I used to plan loads of routes like around the Velo Park and all those areas around, which was really nice and really stunning. So I guess I commute into work, thinking about, what's the best way now? Like, what should I be carrying? What should I be wearing? So like it all has changed so much like during the years, especially since I stopped doing BMXing. And yeah, let's see what we have to learn from each other, I guess.
Cool. And then I realized I didn't talk about my style. I am definitely fly by the seat of my pants. I have made a lot of mistakes. they're not mistakes. They were lessons. Like I thought like it was going to be like this. It turned out it would be like this. So I've run into like, you missed the ferry crossing because turns out the ferry was closed that day and you didn't look it up. Or I once had to cycle through a military shooting range. I didn't realize it was in Germany. And they couldn't read the sign because it's before smartphone Google contact stuff. And so I had, I forgot this happened. I had figured out, I'm like, it's something's going on where they're holding traffic and then they're letting them pass through at certain time points. And then they let me go. And I was like on my bicycle and all these cars. And this like army truck came up behind me and they were like, come on, you need to get out of here. But like saying it in German. And I was just like, what's going on? And you can hear like bombs going off. So that's, I did part of the Wild Atlantic Way thinking I could do 200K a day. Like, it's like this. So many hills. I died after the first day and I was like, nope, I have to completely replan my trip. So the thing is, from learning those lessons, I have a better idea now, but I learned the hard way. So maybe you can learn from my mistakes. Sorry, I keep saying mistakes. They're not mistakes. They're just adventures. I mean, they're funny now. It's like, it was always like, this will be a good story later, but not at the time. So that's your first tip is, it's just a mindset thing. Like, don't, it's always learning. It's all data, it's all intel for the future. So don't get hung up on like, am I doing this right? Is this the correct way to blah, blah, blah? No, it's different for everyone. You'll find your way.
Yeah, I have many lessons that I've learned as well. Oh gosh, where to start? Probably having my derailleur, my rear mech come off was one major lesson. Unexpected, but it happened and I learned what to watch out for from that point forward. So how that actually happened was I was staying somewhere in Croatia because I was getting some new wheels sent out because I had some really impractical wheel. And you may be thinking, how can wheels be impractical? Well, I had some quite vasty road wheel with aero spokes on and only 20 or 24 spokes on each wheel. Okay, if you're sprinting around in a crit or criterium like race, not so great if you're trying to carry 30 kilos or more on there. So I ended up, I was waiting there anyway to get some wheels sent out. And at some point, my bike got loaded into the car and it was pushing on where the hanner is, which is where your rear derailleur attaches onto the frame. Now I've got a steel frame, so I don't have a separate hanner component, so it's part of the frame. So my actual frame got bent. And I hadn't realised until I was going uphill and I put my bike into the lowest gear or the easiest gear and it all just came apart and I like lost all tension of the chain, got off and I realised what had happened and I just had to cable tie everything together. So unexpected things will happen and cable ties are your best friend.
Yeah. Like essential kit cable ties in different sizes. Reusable cable ties are even better. So I'm not sure what if people just want to start diving in with their questions. Some people sent their questions in advance, which was helpful. So we've all kind of gathered some things for like show and tell. But if people also want to do a quick like, hi, I'm this person and maybe like what tour you're planning would be nice to know, and maybe like kind of what you want to find out from today, but not necessarily your question, because we'll come back to people's questions in a second. I just thought it'd be nice if we introduce ourselves. So I'm gonna popcorn, and then other people gotta popcorn the next person, okay? Popcorn Layla.
Okay, so hi, so my name is Iris, and I'm from the Leila Bicycle Project in
sorry.
Israel, Palestine. It's
Iris,
okay.
Iris.
And I'm also a mechanic, and I did a bunch of bike tours, but they were many, many years ago. It was like 15, 20 years ago. And my favorite one was the Kotopia bike tour in Europe. I really recommend it. It's a great bike tour. But this summer, in June and July, I'm going to be on a bicycle trip from Amsterdam to Toulouse. So it's 6 weeks. And yeah, I have a lot of questions and a lot of things that I really appreciate that you're doing this, and I really want to learn a lot. I have some things that I just think just like you said, we learn from experiences, and it's so useful to have many people's experiences. So yeah, just looking forward to whatever you guys share. And I'm popcorn to Easy.
Hi everyone. Yeah, my name's Izzy. I've not done any touring yet, but my brother's very into touring, so he kind of wants me to come along with him, and I really want to do that as well. He's kind of got a trip potentially planned going over on the ferry over to Calais and doing a bit of riding around northern France, but like I said, I've not done any touring yet, and I've only just actually got my first nice road bike. Previously, I've just been using a hybrid that I've had for ages. I've always loved cycling, but now I thought I want to get into it a bit more properly. So yeah, I sent some questions in around tubeless tires, and yeah, I need to learn all the basics basically to do with bike repairs, because honestly I have zero experience. So yeah, that's me.
And then you have to popcorn someone.
Popcorn Eva.
Ava, your mic is off.
I'm so used to Teams. I always get confused with Zoom. I've actually been to one of your workshops many years ago, sort of for essential repairs on the roadside or something similar it was called, which was brilliant. So my situation is I've done loads of cycling, many road cycling and supported rides, but I'm retiring soon and I have loads of plans to do loads of bike touring. So general tips always very welcome, but I was particularly interested in experiences with accommodation, in particular the warm showers. That's it. Now, how do I find all the other? I popcorn to, is Amy a participant or is she somebody from the team? Can't remember. Sonia?
Yeah, unless
Sonia?
there's another Amy, I think. So.
Sorry? I can't
Amy, do you
remember
want
who's already spoken. Zoe? Popcorn to Zoe?
Hi, yeah, I haven't gone, so I can go. Evening, everyone. So I've done one tour before, which was sort of pre-COVID, out Hebrides on the Hebridean Way, and I'm so far a tag-along tourer. So and then I follow and tag along, which is. But I'm trying to like not leave her to it because I really enjoyed our trip in the Out Hebrides. And next month we are cycling down the west coast, and generally camping along route using maybe 1 or 2 warm shower locations. So waiting for some responses. So yeah, we do a bit of, well, my sister does a bit of planning, and then we leave room for flexibility. But I'm trying to help her a bit more with planning. And yeah, would like to know, I sent a query in as well about tires. So currently, like, I have 40 mil tires, which seem quite, I generally cycle a lot around London and just for commuting. And that seems a bit thick. And I was wondering if, yeah, I should get, if there's ideal tire width for entire types for touring, but I guess it also depends on where you're cycling, what kind of touring you're doing. So that's me. I'm on my phone, so I'm not sure how well I can see participants. I can click on it. Yeah, has Sonia gone or Hayley? I can't remember.
Sonia's gone, not gone. Can you tear yourself away?
Yes, I've actually I've turned the TV off because it was too much of a distraction. So I'll watch it on catch up with a large glass of whiskey. Yes, my touring has been in groups. So I've not done any solo tours. I'd like to, but I'm a little bit scared because I'm thinking about, I don't have that much mech experience. I mean, I can, you know, change a tube and stuff like that. But, you know, if the chain fell off, I wouldn't know what to do, that kind of stuff. So I do need to up my knowledge about that. And also personal security, I suppose. If I was going to cycle on my own as a woman, you know, that the security aspect concerns me a bit. But I'd like to go touring over in Europe. Probably not this year because I'm not very fit cycle wise, but maybe next year, if, you know, for maybe like a weekend just to see how I handle it. That's my aim. So that's why I'm here. Oh, popcorn. Who's that? Amy, have you spoken already? Louise?
Hiya, sorry, struggling to find where I'll meet. Yeah, I've done a bit of cycle touring with a group where someone else has organised it, and that was in from Lyon to Marseille. Putting our bikes together after the flight was really awful. So advice on how to avoid that or do that better would be great. We had all our tools confiscated at security. Good lesson. Don't take them in your hand luggage. And then around Ireland and Wales with a group. And more recently, I've been organising, getting some friends to do day trips. And I just did a couple of solo days in the Isle of Wight. But I'd love to be a bit more confident doing it by myself and also being the planner for multi-day trips. So I'd really like to do one of the coast to coasts in the UK, if that's kind of the next thing that I'd like to do. And then potentially go abroad as well, but be the person organising it, not the person tagging along. Yeah. Has everyone gone?
Is that everyone?
Gone?
I think that might be everyone. Okay, so we did have people write in with questions, so maybe we'll start with those first, and then we can move on to the others. So first is Izzy's asking, I just got a new road bike with tubeless tires, but I don't know too much about them. I'd like to know what essentials I should keep in my saddlebag for tubeless punctures and any other advice around tubeless. I have to admit, I've never actually changed a tire or mended a puncture, even on my old hybrid, so I'm very new to this, but I want to make sure I'm properly prepared.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel probably compared to everyone, just hearing everyone speak, I have the least experience definitely in mechanics and so on. But like I said, I've just got a new road bike and it has tubeless tires, and I've been doing a bit of research about what you should be carrying out. This can just be for, I mean, everyday rides, like weekend rides and so on. And I don't know if anyone else has tubeless and what their experience is and what they carry, because from the sounds of it, there's multiple options. If you like do get a puncture, that the sealant doesn't seal the tire itself. And yeah, I just was wondering what the best options are. And for example, I know you can either put on a patch, those little worm wiggle things that you kind of plug the hole, or carry a spare inner tube as well. And should you be taking all three of those options in your saddlebag, or is there one that's better than the other, or whatnot?
I have bad news for you. The only way you're gonna get good at any of it is by doing it. So.
Yeah.
So Jamie, I think you were gonna say something.
Yeah, like with tubeless, I'd say like the idea of it stopping punctures is all in like the preparation and all of the upkeep of the system of the tubeless, like of the components there. So you've got the tire, the rim, and the sealant. And the sealant is your kind of wearing part in that system. So that's basically just like PVA glue that's liquid inside your tire. And what will cause that to cure is if that is under low pressure, if that gets access to kind of atmospheric pressure outside the wheel, then that will begin to cure. So one of the things you want to look for with like road bike wheels is usually they'll have a little bit less air in them than mountain bike tires, which is where they kind of originate from. So with that lower air amount, if it does go down and it does get to a point where it has to cure and fill a gap, then you'll probably want to go and have a pump with you just to make sure that you can refill that air. And then also making sure that that sealant inside the tire doesn't cure whilst you're leaving the bike. So it doesn't like kind of get all crusty and dry, and making sure that you top it up pretty frequently so that there is always going to be sealant there in case you do get a puncture in the tire. I think Jenni had an example of one of the things that you can carry in case you do get some damage in the tire. So kind of like a patch kit that you can use.
How often should you be adding more sealant into the tires?
That I think you would need to check with like the manufacturer of the sealant. They're probably going to have different times for different types. But the idea is just making sure that there's always some liquid amount of sealant within the tire. And then maybe there'd also be some kind of cleaning involved. So actually taking the tire off, removing any of the old nasty sealant once it has gone off. But again, that's probably going to be with sealant manufacturers and stuff like that.
And if you're not riding that bike often, you have to like spin the tires regularly, like if it's sitting in your room or whatever, because you want the sealant to be always moving around. If it stays still, then it starts to dry in some areas, and because it'll be pulled up at the bottom. I grabbed some tubeless tire puncture repair tools. These are the ones that have the worm or the bacon or whatever anchovy people want to call it. And then there's the kits that actually you like patch the hole from the inside of the tire. That's more labor intensive. So these are the ones that are like a day ride. You would carry this with you. This is like the classic one where one end has like, it's like a file, and that's designed to make the hole a bit bigger if the worm doesn't fit. And then this end holds the worm. I don't have any worms with me, I'm afraid. But it's like a sticky gooey thing. You put it in halfway and then you just shove it in. So the best thing you can do is actually practice stabbing if you get one of these, because I think that's like it's a weird action and people don't practice stabbing things. So you kind of got to get used to it. This one is a Dynaplug, which is a slightly different type. This is like a barb. Yeah, it's kind of a barb that goes in and you stab, and then this tip, this like brass tip, stays inside and you just pull it out. That's what they look like inside. So that's like the wormy bit, and then this brass bit, that's the brand right there. And then the other end is this is the mountain bike size. That's the only difference between these two. It's just for like a bigger hole. But yeah, it wouldn't hurt to carry a spare tube. It's gonna be harder to get on, so you should practice.
And with those like stabbing the wormy things in, are they seen as a temporary solution, or could you actually just keep going? You should be fine.
Yeah, absolutely. They totally work. They're not like, I mean, sometimes I guess they don't, but they are the proper way to fix a puncture if the sealant doesn't hold. So the idea with tubeless is the sealant is supposed to plug, like you get a cut on your hand, you get a scab. That's like what the sealant's doing to your tire. But sometimes the hole's too big, so air keeps coming out
Yeah.
And then so it can't seal. So that's why you've got to plug the hole with something bigger. And if that doesn't work,
Need a whole new tire.
well, yeah, maybe, but or you patch it from the inside, but that's when you have to get more surgical and take stuff.
Mhm. Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. So first point of call, if you do have a more serious puncture, the stabby thing, hopefully that should work. And then maybe because the patch, so you would just patch it from the inside, but then you would need to put an inner tube in, or you wouldn't need to put.
As long as you've got the sealant,
Mhm,
that should be fine.
mhm.
Jamie, were you going to say something?
On
Yeah,
the roadside, I guess that would be hard. Well, you
yeah.
wouldn't-
So with tubeless, once you've got it onto the rim, because tubeless tires they tend to be a little bit tighter on the rim than a tire that's meant for tubes, because they need to be tighter because they need to be airtight
Mhm,
on the rim. Even when they're not fully inflated, they need to be airtight so they can hold that air and then inflate. It just means that if you need to take that tire off to do an inside patch, then that's going to be a little more labor intensive. And also sometimes getting the tire to jump from the inside of the rim out to where it's meant to sit on the sides of the rim, where it's properly inflated. When you get it up onto that area, which is called the bead, that can be a little bit tricky as well. Sometimes it really depends on the tire, but it really comes down to how much air you can put into that tire very quickly to make that jump and inflate properly, especially with tubeless, because it has a tendency to maybe leak a bit of air. So a good pump as well is helpful, but also just making sure that if you have the opportunity to fix that flat without taking it off the bead and without taking the tire off, then that would definitely be my preferred option, just because getting that tire back on and reinflated can be a little more like hassle.
Okay, yeah. So hopefully the worm thing should be enough to get you home at least, and then you can do whatever else you need to do at home, which would be a bit easier.
Yeah.
What size tires do you have, Izzy?
What are they? 32.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, yeah. It is primarily a road bike, but light gravel as well. It's the Live and Vale AR1. Yeah.
I'd definitely look into like either a good hand pump, or even, I don't like canisters because I find them really environmentally terrible, but I don't know whether other options are out there. Like if you carry a canister, like a refillable one, I think that exists.
Yeah.
Hayley, sorry, you were going to say something.
Oh yeah, I was going to say that if you can't cycle home, there's always other modes of transport. So you can get a taxi, a bus. If you're out somewhere that's a bit more unfamiliar, you could hitchhike, but always trust your gut when you do so, and let people know where you are.
Yeah.
It's all good.
Yeah, I'm sure someone somewhere makes like a travel size reusable canister that you like pump up and fill with pressurized air, so you can use one shot to like fill up the tire quickly. But we only have like the big full size ones in the workshop. I don't know about travel ones. Something I want to look into. That's interesting. Okay, I've got a question, or this is Zoe's request about wanting to hear about tires for touring. So this is a nice little segue, moving from punctures to tires. Anyone got opinions?
Always stick with Schwalbe.
Which is the brand? Yeah.
Yeah, I love Schwalbe tires. I think they're great.
So what was that again? I didn't quite catch.
Schwalbe tires. I really like Schwalbe. I can grab an example, but they're just up there. They're ones where we probably sell the most. Schwalbe Marathon Pluses are pretty much a go-to for anyone who's doing like around the world or continental trips, just because of how good they are. If you get the Marathon Plus, they've got like a layer inside that's good for puncture protection. And, you know, I see them with like bits of glass and all of the stuff from the road inside the tire, but it hasn't made its way to the tube yet. So they're pretty good at what they do.
Yeah, I can vouch for them because I got 15,000 kilometers out of my pair of marathon pluses and only 3 punctures with them as well. And I suspect the last puncture at least would, because it was completely bald by the end. So I can vouch for them. They do the job. They're not puncture proof, but they are
Yeah.
the best that you can get.
Okay, good tip. Thank you.
I'm partial to Pan Racer myself, but again, to each their own. I find marathon pluses to be really hard and uncomfortable, and I would rather be comfortable and fix a puncture than ride something really hard. So I really like they're really basic. The Pan Racer Pasella tire, I tour on those. I find them really nice. They're cheap. They're 30 quid each.
Would you mind just writing that in the chat box?
Oh yeah, sure.
Thank you.
If you do decide to go a bit more off-road, then some more cyclocross or knobbly tires might be better suited for you. So by the time I changed my tires over, I was starting to go off onto more gravel, and I ended up using Continental Crosskin, and they've done the job really well. I felt like I had enough grip when I was going over really loose surfaces. So I recommend those as well if you're going a bit more off-road. But yeah, it changes all the time. Tire manufacturers come out with new things. I remember doing a lot of research before I got the Crosskin because I wanted to make sure I was getting something that was a bit more up-to-date and reliable.
I do recommend getting as wide a tire as your bike will allow, because wider is going to be a bit more comfortable. So again, I'm coming from a place of comfort, and I'm like, wider is, you've got a bit more bounce. Like, but what it depends on is, like, if you've got mud guards, that mud guard is going to control how big a tire you get to put in there. The frame clearance, the fork clearance controls that. Your brake caliper, if you have the road caliper brakes, that dictates how big a tire you can put in there. So check the clearance, especially between your chain stays and seat stays for the back wheel, and then the fork crown for the front wheel.
Okay, that's good. Yeah, I think actually at the moment my front mud guard is too tight on my front wheel, which is, yeah, got me thinking about the width of my tire. But I think the issue is actually the mud guard. But that's all really useful.
I'd seriously, this is personal opinion. I got rid of the mud guards because I wanted to put on bigger tires.
Yeah.
But some people really value not having crud on their butt, so it depends. Okay. Zoe, does that answer your question?
Yeah, useful tips. Thank you very much, everyone.
Iris had the amazing long list that we were like, wow, this is great. These are really great questions. So I think we're just going to go through what you sent. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's great.
So first question is, or want advice on choosing a lightweight secondhand bike, not carbon or anything too high end. Are there any favorite companies or tips?
I don't know about companies, but if you're looking for like a lightweight secondhand bike that isn't carbon, then you're probably definitely going to end up with an aluminium frame. Aluminium frames, when you're looking at them, when you're making sure they're still okay, is usually a little bit easier than steel bikes because they're not going to have any hidden kinks or bends in the frame, because usually with an aluminium bike, if it gets to the point where it's going to bend, it will have broken already, and it'll be very visual, you can see it. But yeah, I'd say aluminium frame, preferably if you want to be able to do any touring. You're going to be like limited by how big a tire you can put on and what brakes you can use. I'd say if you want to do touring, you probably want to go for bigger tires and either V brakes or disc brakes, just because it allows you more flexibility in what you can put on the bike with carrying and where you can go. Yeah.
Hayley, any opinions?
Yeah, I agree with Jamie. It's probably going to be aluminium if you want lightweight. However, it is possible to get some lightweight steel if you go for quite almost high end, but not quite. It's tricky to say because it does depend what you put on it as well. I'm always in favor of steel. I believe steel is real. It's something that anyone can weld anywhere. Although saying that, you are, from the sound of it, staying in Europe, so you're not going to be too far from a bike shop, I hope. And people, the mechanic will always know someone somewhere who can get you the thing that you need, or a welder for aluminium. It's very rare to find someone who's comfortable fixing aluminium, but it's up to you. So I personally did my trip on a Surly cross-check. Surly are pretty good, really good frame, made of steel. Another manufacturer could be Doors, but we've got Genesis, they're pretty good. There's quite a few others as well. Marley could be in the mix as well, but Doors, Surly, and Genesis are the biggest one. Got Crust bikes as well, but they're more state, like Surly and Crust are in the United States, and then Doors and Marley, I think, are both UK. I know that Marley is. Yeah, I'm thinking about where you could buy a secondhand bike. So I actually found mine on Gumtree, and I got it secondhand for maybe half or a third of the full price that it would have been. But I did have to make lots of changes to the bike as well. So probably recommend Facebook Marketplace, any local bike shop. They might know where to get secondhand bikes locally. In the UK, in London, I would know where to go. There's other like bike projects and other cooperatives around that have secondhand bikes, and you can talk to them. I would get talking to them as soon as possible and try out some of the bikes if you can.
I would actually go the way of steel and vintage steel. So if you can find a Reynolds 531 steel frame, like that's a decent lightweight steel, good quality. Steel absorbs more of the vibrations from the road, so again, it's more comfortable. Alloy's brittle, it's going to transfer the vibrations of the road to you, so I want something that's going to dampen that vibration, so I choose steel for my touring bikes. And then I'm popping into the chat a talk we did on how to buy a secondhand bike, so things to look out for when you're shopping. Let's see, next question. Other than pannier bags, what other bags work best for you? Something for handlebars or bike rack. What you got?
Handlebar bags are great. Handlebar bags are like really, really great for small things. Like snack bags, having things like that on hand while you're cycling is really great. And like maps as well, you can put your phone in a lot of them because they'll have a little pocket. Or frame bags if they're going to fit in the center triangle of the frame. I think they're pretty good for repair kits and maybe a little bit heavier things that not going to fit in your frame or a handlebar bag. The thing that I am a little bit more cautious of is any bag that's going to go on your front rack. If you've got a front rack that's attached to the fork, putting a lot of weight or anything really super heavy on there is going to really affect your steering. And I'm not a big fan of that. I think that being able to feel any extra weight in my hands while I'm steering just really throws me off and makes me feel a bit uncomfortable. So I prefer carrying all the weight on the back, pannier bags, or in the frame bag. So yeah, my personal experience, just like don't stick anything super heavy on the front, or if you do need to, try and keep it as low as possible, which like you can get like low profile frame racks.
I was second that. When I was on my trip, I started with bottle cages with 5 litre dry bags on the front, and later as I left Europe, I had to change my setup a bit more because I was going more remote when I headed to Central Asia, and I ended up with a rack that was fairly low profile. It's like sort of center of the wheel with where the bags were, so it's still high enough to make clearance over curbs and things, but it was low enough that the weight felt quite well distributed, and I thought quite thoroughly about how I was going to be carrying the weight and where it was going to be, because I didn't want too much weight on the rear, because that can also affect the bike, and otherwise the front will just be all loose and then all the weight's in the back and I'm just dragging. So I ended up balancing it out. I had small bags on the front, but sort of bulkier, heavy items. So for example, I had like electronics thing in the front, snacks, heavier food like rice and pastas, what else did I have? Water, first aid kit, all of that. Well, carrying water everywhere by that point. But yeah, I completely agree. Frame bag. So I had 2 water bottles. Let me see if I can share the screen. And so let's go on to that. And then, so yeah. So this is a little diagram of what my bike looked like and sort of a rough idea of what I had in each bag. This was when it was at its heavier. So I suspect that you're not going to need to carry anywhere near as much as this. But it gives you a rough idea of what's going on and what's where. So yeah, I also had a bum bag. So I had a sleeping bag in a dry bag in a harness between my handlebars, and then I had a bum bag or like fanny pack, little bag that I could carry around my waist, and I would just clip that like onto the front bag. And in that bum bag I had all of my essentials, so all of the important documents, passport, money, a small battery pack and cable. So this was the bag where if anything went wrong, I could just click the button, it would release, and I could take that bag and I know that I can get anywhere with it because it's got some cash, all of my credit card, debit card, and important documents. So if I needed to abandon the bike, I could still get home or get to somewhere safe. Okay, let's see if I can actually close this. Yes, there we go.
Can we have a copy of that diagram and we can send it to people? That's really great.
Sure.
I saw you holding up a stem cell. These little round like pouches that like it's like velcroed to your stem, which is right by your handlebars. These are great. They're like feed bags. You just put food in there, you can eat while you're riding. On a bike that doesn't have a water bottle cage, you can put a water bottle in it. It's just really handy. So I love these. Dry bags are always useful, or Ziploc bags, but dry bags are a bit more reusable. And my first solo tour, I have a big Caradis long flap, and Sonia's got one of these. I carried everything in this, and I Ziploc vacuum sealed all my clothes. I was riding to Munich to go to Oktoberfest, so I had my dirndl in here. And then like 2 pairs of bib shorts, and that was it. That's all I could barely fit everything, but I was doing warm showers, so I didn't have to bring any like camping gear. These are technically waterproof, but up to a point. So they're cotton duck. I see Sonia nodding. The cotton will swell and it creates like a waterproof like layer, but if it's like pissing it down, that's why you need your stuff in dry bags inside. Anyone else got favorite bags they want to share? Otherwise we can go to the next question.
Probably Oatly.
I think also with frame bags, just a thing to note is I would not buy any kind of frame bag for your bike. The one that goes in the middle of the frame. Don't buy any one of those off the shelf. They're just not going to fit very well. And if you do a little bit of searching, you can usually find someone who's going to make one custom fit to your frame, and it will just be a lot nicer. It won't be baggy or loose. I think they're going to fit a lot better, and they'll probably be a lot better for what you need. You can usually like customize them. I think I'd do that before getting one that's a one size fits none.
Well, you say that, but mine actually fit my bike.
Not lucky.
I was just lucky. I was riding a bike that was slightly too big for me. So that's why I would probably try out a few bikes and make sure you get one that feels quite comfortable for you. And you can always change things. So you can bring your seat posts higher or lower. You can change the stem that holds the handlebars. That's what I ended up doing. I had to shorten the stem because I was just reaching too far out and locked out my elbows and got pain there. Yeah, just try it out.
So the next question is about gadgets. So was there a gadget that's essential for you?
Power banks.
Yes.
I had 2 power banks and I would charge them up every time I was in a cafe, any kind of building, any warm showers. So I think everyone might know what warm showers is, but it's a bit similar to couch surfing. It's basically a network of cyclists who can host you around the world. In Europe, there's a lot more cyclists who are willing to host. And I think part of that comes down to cost of living. And when you get to more remote places, people don't really cycle for leisure. It's a different kind of reason why you would use a bike. So people aren't really hobby cyclists when you get into more remote areas. But they are still very, very friendly people out on the road. Yeah.
Can you put the name of it in the chat?
Sorry, the link for warm showers.
Yeah, I just didn't know about it.
Yes, I think Hayley, you can pop that in there. My advice for warm showers is don't book warm showers last minute. So I did that and I stayed with some strange people.
They do have reviews, so you can gauge if someone's good or not. If they've got quite a few reviews and people are really upbeat about them, you're generally on to a winner. But if people are quite neutral or being very polite and not really going into depth, then you know that it probably wasn't that great. But it's kind of an awkward thing, because if you say for someone and they were really nice, but it was really strange, you don't want to embarrass them by doing that, by saying, oh yeah, this fashion was really lovely, but they were really weird. Blah, blah, blah. Yeah.
Just definitely do your research, book it in advance, communicate with the people, find out where you're sleeping. Like one of them, I had to share a room with a guy we were in the same room, and I did not know that was happening. So that I was not happy about that. My gadget is the Beeline. I've got the power bank. Anchor's a really good brand, by the way. Their stuff's just good. It works. The Beeline, this is the 2.0, the latest version. I used to just use Guru Maps and get a compass, like kind of, I'm like, oh, I have to just kind of go that way. But this is like a cross between a Garmin and nothing. So it's like an arrow and it just points you in the direction you need to go. The second version that they've just come out with actually beeps before you have to turn, which is really helpful.
Oh, that
And
sounds like something I'd find useful.
I really recommend this. Their app is really good. The app is really good for planning bike routes. You can import GPX files into it. It's fairly simple. There is a class on that we did. I've shared that, but I can share all the classes again. What's the other good thing about this? It has an off button this time. The previous version didn't have an off button, so you just didn't know when it was gonna die. But yeah, I really rate this. It's really user friendly. Zoe, no problem. If you want, you can drop any other questions in the chat if people have to go, and then we'll just keep talking and then record it and send it out. So, but yeah, Beeline, totally recommend this. Jamie, do you have any?
No, not too many on the gadgets. I kind of, the trips I've been on have been pretty low tech. I usually kind of like to have paper maps on me just because I think they're cool and I like paper maps. I'd say they're pretty good to have either way. Like even if you have some kind of electronics, it's nice to have like a backup. In the UK, you can use OS Maps. As long as you've got their Explorer one with a good enough scale, they're going to have like a ton of information, like more information than you could ever need. And most of the places, Europe, I know for sure, and pretty much anywhere else, you're going to be able to find an equivalent of an OS map that will be good for you. But Jenny did show me the Beeline the other day, and that looks like a very good middle ground between a paper map and like a full-on GPS sat nav. So I'm actually starting to look at the Beeline because it looks super interesting and kind of appeals to me because it's helpful, but it's not too much, and it's not going to be everything. Yeah, just too much. I quite like it. I'm gonna have a look at it.
Yeah, and it's like, I think it's 100 pounds. So it's not like a Garmin or a Wahoo. It's waterproof. I've used it a lot. So I definitely rate it.
Yeah. Just I know that everyone's probably going to be in more populated areas first of all, but the paper map also has an advantage in when you get it out, people are more willing to help you and also point out new destinations, where if you get your phone out and you're trying to look at something or you're trying to talk to someone and ask them to show you where something is, it might not be so intuitive. Whereas if you get a paper map out, people are a bit more like, oh, yeah, and they're like, I don't know, it's just a bit more personal, the connection with people when you get a paper map out as well. Even if you print out something or you go down a charity shop and get an atlas, so a paper map where you can see a bit of each area bit by bit, pretty cheap. Even if it's out of date, people will love it.
Yeah, everyone wants to find where they are on a map. Like the minute it pops out, you're like, where am I? Let's see. Kind of related, how to plan the route and find places to stay. And you asked about mix of couch surfing, hostels, Airbnbs, no camping though. And we mentioned warm showers.
I think Sylvie wants to.
Oh, Sylvie, go for it.
Yeah, I was gonna add, like, if I was ever gonna like do any sort of, like in my dream, I'm like, okay, yeah, I wanna go like cycle all the way to the Netherlands, where all the amazing cycle lanes are, go from like town to town, and obviously like, think about warm showers or staying like with people. And then I'm just like, okay, like obviously my phone could be for like last minute things, emergencies, like I'm not gonna use it all the time. But if I get somewhere, I do like to listen to music. So I'm just like literally popped into my head like an old iPod shuffle, and then just hope for the best that you're just gonna be able to like find the songs that are gonna motivate you to carry on forward. I was thinking like I like obviously like books, but that's not a gadget. I was like my Kindle, and I was like, where am I gonna charge my Kindle? That is like so many different things that you're like, oh man, you forget how dependent you are on certain things, like on your daily life. And then now listening to everybody else, I'm like, oh man, that probably won't be a thing if I'm like cycling for days or cycling for like weeks. So yeah, that's my input in that. MP3s, iPod shuffles.
Perfect for that. So yeah, how to plan the route and find places to stay. We did a route planning with apps class. I can pop that in the chat. Hayley?
Yeah, I was going to add in, there's so many different ways of planning routes. You can start with the paper, or you could start with Google Maps and have a look on there. You can use several different apps. You can use Google Maps, you can use Commute, which I'll also put in the chat. Oh, Amy's also said, I get on very well with Brighton for direction, or Britain. Yeah. I haven't used that. I'd be curious about that. And then for offline maps, on my trip, I use Maps.me, which I'll also put in. It's maps.me, and that's an app that you can download, and you can download region or a whole country for use completely offline. Something that I found essential because I would keep my phone in airplane mode for most of the day. So I could save battery and also not get hundreds of notifications. So yeah, that's quite useful, but mostly to save battery.
Really good tip. Like,
yeah,
your phone in airplane mode. Guru Maps will work offline, so that's a really great free mapping app. That got me out of trouble several times. I would talk about that in the video, so I popped the link to that in the chat. And then I think you just kind of have to figure out, like, do you want to base your travels on particular places you want to stay, particular landmarks you want to see, particular people that maybe you were going to stay with, and then plan the route around that? Or you could plan it around, well, you're only as fast as your slowest rider, so it's based on how far your slowest rider can travel. And then you go on a map and you're like, well, we're starting in Amsterdam, and every day we're only doing 40K. So what's 40K from Amsterdam? You just kind of do that. There's no right way. You just find what works for you. And like what happened with Hayley, you end up completely changing. So experiment.
I do plenty of research on the routes that are available. I know that in Europe, like almost every country in Europe now is going to have some kind of collective list or compiled list of like national cycleways. A lot of the ones here in the UK are like old railway lines that have been converted, which are really great. They always like lend themselves well to being cycle routes because they're usually pretty straight, relatively flat, and they'll have been redone to just be for cycles, so you don't have to worry about cars or anything like that. I know that in France they have a similar thing with like a national cycle route network. So if you can find those routes, I take them over any kind of car, street, or road any day. They're going to be, much nicer to cycle on. So I'd say put in the legwork to do to find some nicer routes to kind of avoid cars and things. And I think you'll end up paying for it. It will pay you back. Put some effort into finding those. I think they're really good.
Yeah, I second that. Especially in France, they're really good at signposting their routes as well, especially along canal, which again is relatively flat. Similar to railway lines, they're not going to be doing massive gradients because the boats carrying goods would have to go along those canals. Also throughout Europe, there's Eurovelo routes. So I think there's 16 Eurovelo routes, and you can do a combination. You don't have to follow one route the whole way. You can jump onto one route for a bit to get you to one landmark or place that you want to go to, and then you can hop on to another. And also some days you might do 20k because you just want to get to the next town to see something, to go and explore. Yeah, and also you get stronger as you go. So you might start out and you only have enough energy to do about maybe 30k, and then the next day you might do 40, and then you might take a rest. That's what I did when I started. Although I was cycling anyway, I did start the trip with a friend who was a runner and not really a cyclist. So while she had some fitness, it was a different application of fitness. So I think the first few days it was quite short distances, and also weather has a huge impact as well. Because you're going in the summer, you might have to stop in the middle of the day for a bit longer. But yeah, just go with the flow.
Cool.
So the Eurovelo and the National Cycle Routes Network that Jamie you were talking about, it's you just Google it and like you find the ones you were referring to?
Yeah, so I know in the UK that it's called like the National Cycle Network, I think. But usually if you Google for something like that, like some kind of national bike routes with the country that you're looking for, you'll usually be able to find something. And it's always better if you can find like the government list, because that will be the up-to-date version. But also sometimes they're output and they're put into different map applications. So sometimes you might get lucky in the like map route that you're using, or the software that you're using might have that as an overlay. It might just have it included, but if not, you can always like have a search around for them.
You didn't mention solar panels for charging. Is it because you don't find these effective?
Oh no, like you can use dynamos, like dynamos in your front wheel. They're a little bit more bike specific than solar panels. I don't know much about solar panels. I've not used any myself, but I know that you can use the dynamos. Dynamos will run like lights front and rear of the bike, and then if you're doing sustained mileage on a bike, you can feasibly charge a phone or a power bank off the dynamo hub. With those, you usually have to have some kind of intermediary between the dynamo and whatever you're charging, because if you're cycling and you're using a dynamo, it's not going to be a very level or consistent voltage. It'll be up and down, and that's not very good for your phone. So if that's something you want to look into and you want to figure out a way of charging devices from your bike, then there'll be lots of videos on YouTube, stuff like that. But it's always good to make sure that your devices and whatever you're charging is protected from that fluctuating voltage. But yeah, totally something you can do. You can charge anything with a bike, really, if you pedal hard enough.
Right, there was the next question was on what not to pack. My rule for packing is everything has to have 2 jobs. So if it only is, I mean, like a toothbrush, obviously, like that's fine. But a lot of other things, it's like it's gotta do at least 2 things. Otherwise, there's no point in bringing it. Like you'll value having the weight saving over whatever the thing is. I don't know if anyone else has other packing, what don't bring tips.
If I would say pack, if you're time constrained at all, I would pack a spare Met canner. If you have a separate piece that attaches your rear mech to the frame, they're quite specific according to the model of your bike. So even within the same brand, different models of bike are going to have a different shape to their Met canner. The industry are trying to change that a little bit nowadays, but it's still something that's worth having because it can save a lot of time. Otherwise, you might be in a town somewhere in a bike shop waiting for a while. But if you don't want to carry that, number one then would be a multi-tool. Because you can pick. Yeah.
Sorry.
Go on, Louise.
Do you take bike locks with you when you tour? Oh,
yeah.
I've been wasting weight.
I bring a cafe lock. I bring a it's basically a glorified cable tie, and it's got a little like a code lock, and it's just like, it's really light. I would not bring a lock. Your bike's probably going to be with you at all times. The most dangerous place to be for bike theft is London. Like, basically out on the roads, I was always way more paranoid than I needed to be about my bike being stolen. Even things like books, like I thought I was going to read, and I never read, and I was like, why do I have this book with me? Like,
It's interesting what you said about the locks, because I assume it's been a really long time for me since I toured, but I assume that there will be many times where you're going to leave the bike and, you know, go into town or go into a store, go hiking, whatever. You didn't end up having to lock it, like lock your bike with all the equipment on it and everything?
I was in the middle of like these tiny towns in the countryside. Like, I just left my bike outside the shop and I'd go in, and it was, or you bring the bike in, like people are more amused by you, and they're like, want to see what's going on, and they're not going to get mad. If you're really paranoid, you could bring a lock, but I might go grab the one I use just so you can see. I don't know if other people have opinions.
I think with my experience carrying a lock, I have a tendency just to bring it anyway because I worry if I don't have it.
Yes.
But a lot of the time, if I have it on me, if it gets to the point where I'm like, where I'm doing something or I'm carrying stuff on my bike, I've got bags and things, a lock isn't going to secure that stuff. So if it gets to the point where I would usually just lock up my bike and use a cable to go through front wheel or back wheel, and the U-lock that I have, that's not going to do a thing for any of my bags, anything attached to the bike like that. So it's kind of that annoying position of like, I could lock my bike and then take everything off of it that's not, bolted down or secured on it. But I can't. So a lot of the time I just won't try. I'll try to like deliberately not get into those situations. Or if you say like you're gonna like camp and hike out or something like that, maybe think of a way of securing it in your tent or on the campsite or something like that. Just because locking the bike when it's in like a touring setup isn't going to be that successful because you're just not going to be able to secure everything that's like attached onto it.
Yeah, I agree. Where was I? I think I was on the south side of Lake Garda in Italy, and I actually ended up locking my bike with all the bags on it, but I took my laptop out and any valuables and took it with me, and it's completely fine. Like, nobody went in there and touched anything, but I would prepare for if someone did take anything off or if they took anything out, at least I've got the most valuable things with me. I was prepared to only leave what you're prepared to leave, basically. But I did take a lock with me because there were times where I was staying at hostels or with warm showers. I would leave my bag there and use the bike to go and explore, but I would like to lock it up. For example, I like going to museums and botanical gardens. I like to lock the bike up and know, excuse me, and know that it's going to be safe.
I mean, that said, I do know 2 people that did have their bikes stolen on tour, so it does happen. It's just statistically, I think it's quite low. And it's like, it's up to you. Like, do you want to carry the lock? I don't know. It's like, I don't wear a helmet when I'm touring. Yeah. If I was mountain biking, I would, but yeah, that's another thing I don't bring. Any other, I don't bring things.
hard to think of things I don't bring, just because I'll bring anything. If I can, there's like a situation where I'm like, that could maybe happen, then I'll bring the solution for that. So no,
I think
I guess it depends on, sorry, I guess it depends on like the distance and how long you're touring for, right? And how, like, what you're worrying about.
also, if there's two of you, you share stuff. Like, share one toothbrush. Fine.
And always wear the same t-shirt.
I use a shampoo bar, actually, thinking about it. A shampoo bar that was also soap. So shampoo doesn't necessarily have to be just for your hair. You can wash your body with it. So I had a little tin. I mean, they last so long, and you're not carrying any water. Did a lot of shampoo water weight. So that's how I managed to save quite a bit of weight as well. I mean, I made up for it by carrying a lot. I also decanted any goods that were in glass jars into plastic. So like Nutella, I decanted into a plastic jar and just reused that plastic jar again and again.
I have another personal hygiene thing. The pee towel. This is a real Marmite subject, I think, but heavy, like hardcore cycle tourists will carry a pee towel. It's like a fiber cloth. That's not right. I don't know the material. It's like a microfiber, and it dries quickly, and you just do your business, dry off, hang it off the side of your bag. It dries up. When you camp, you can wash it, and then it's ready for the next day. Similarly, like the shampoo bar that you use can clean just the surface of your bib shorts if you use that. And then you hang it off the back of your bike. Hopefully it's not raining to dry while you wear the other pair of bib shorts. So you have two pairs and you alternate. But again, if you have bad weather, it's not great.
Yeah, I have struggled just to carry, have the set that you wear and a dry set. I have an extra set not even so much in case of bad weather. I'm a just in case kind of cyclist. So I've managed to whittle it down over the years, but I struggle not to carry stuff just in case. And then the what ifs. So the just in case and the what ifs is what will get me every time. And I carry a lock. I'm a Londoner. I will carry a lock into the deepest parts of the countryside because I'm from London.
I know the feeling.
You know what? I'm the other way around though. I'm just like, I don't carry a lock because I'm in London. And if I don't carry a lock, I can't leave my bike anywhere. And if I don't leave my bike anywhere, it doesn't get stolen. So it's like a mixture, right? It's like I purposely make it really difficult for myself to leave my bike anywhere.
Yeah. So consequently, I don't cycle as often as I could because I don't want to leave my bike anywhere. And now that I've gotten slightly past the age of 50 something or other, I need to pee more than I did when I was younger. So that just adds to the paranoia about leaving my bike somewhere. But yes, today's session has been very, very useful to try and get me to rethink the stuff that I feel are important to carry, or the what ifs.
But also, if it makes you feel like you are ready to tour, do it. There's nothing wrong with it. If you're that kind of a person, that's fine. It's just you find the way that makes you feel comfortable as a cycle tourist. Again, there's no right or wrong way. Some people prefer to carry less. Some people are fine carrying more because it gives them peace of mind. There's nothing wrong with that. More questions from Iris because they're very good. Another question about menstruation periods while touring. Any insight?
Well, I'm probably not going to be too useful because while I was on my trip, I had the contraceptive implant, and I was lucky enough that it stopped my period for the whole trip, and for the previous few years that I had it prior to the trip as well. But it is not a complete fail-safe, and my periods actually return like within a month of getting back to the UK. So I think it's kind of stress related as well. So but what I use nowadays and what I would be comfortable using when I tour next is the menstrual cup. So I love using them. I can't feel it, can't notice it. At first you feel it and you're a bit like, oh, it's a bit odd, but you get used to it, and it's something that you can clean out every day. You can have it in for 12 hours, which is longer than a tampon. I personally don't like tampons because it's a bit odd having bleach cotton stuck up inside me. Oh yeah, no. So menstrual cup I would go for, and you can always boil it as well to sanitize it.
Yeah, I second the cup. I can't use one anymore, but when I could use one, I loved it. So if you can use one, definitely give it a go. And that was it. We got through your list, Iris. Really good questions.
Thank you. It was really useful to hear your experience.
And I think it was helpful.
I feel like it's a lot to think about, and there's probably a lot that I didn't even think about, but we learn on the road. But you all have so much experience. It's just like, I was so glad that you did this.
Are there other questions that people want to ask? I'm taking a look at my notes from what I think I wanted to address Sonia's concerns about personal security. I think that could be a real barrier. Repairs and stuff as well, but like Jamie mentioned at the beginning, prevention is the best thing you can do. So as long as your bike is you've gotten it serviced, everything's been checked before you go out. Like, I haven't even had a puncture on my tours, like, knock on wood.
Right.
But just preparation is worth doing for sure.
Okay.
But like, yeah, cycle touring alone could, if you've not done it before, I think it could be daunting. I love doing it. I find, you know what though, this was like pre-COVID, you know, and maybe the climate's changed I'm thinking about the continent, you know, attitudes towards women cycling alone, women of color cycling alone. I don't know.
I've not done it yet.
But I've never had a bad experience. Like, I don't know if other people have thought. I think definitely like what Hayley said about like trust your gut and tell people where you are. Check in, have a friend you check in with every day so you know someone's keeping an eye on you. You can get trackers, like that is a thing. But also if you stick to like Holland is a really good place to test out if you like riding alone, because it's the most well signposted segregated path cycle system like anywhere. It's heaven. Like, I would highly recommend take the ferry from the Hook of Holland, from Harwich to the Hook of Holland. Overnight cabin. It was great. I loved it. And then just ride around, like, see how it goes. Yeah, I think it's just building up your confidence in that area.
Yeah.
Hayley, your mic is, you're on mute, or sorry, you are muted, but you're not on mute. I don't know why we can't hear you. No. No, no sound. I don't know what happened. You were there and then. Can you type it in the chat? Oh, wait. Who was that? Hayley, was that you?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, we can hear you now. Good.
Okay, amazing. I had to switch microphones because I have a little gadget microphone that connects to my cochlear implant because I'm hard of hearing or deaf. And it ran out of battery, so I had to switch to the computer audio. But it's just glitch knickers in it with. I was saying you could carry a personal alarm device, or if you know how to set up on a smartphone, there's a pin where in an emergency you can press the side button about 5 times and it sets off like notification to your loved one, and you can set it up so it sends your current location or your last activated location. Yeah.
Good. Thank you.
Also make sure that works in different countries.
Yeah. I also just let people know where it's going the next few days as well. There was one point in Australia where I was in the Kimberleys and like northwest Australia, and all of a sudden I had no phone signal for about 3 days, and my mum panicked and phoned Interpol, and there was like a search thing going, and as soon as I got a signal I had to phone her, and it was 4 o'clock in the morning UK time. I had to be like, hi mum, I'm okay. I just didn't know I was not going to have any signal. So there are pockets of places where you don't have signal. Fortunately, when I got to Tasmania, they signpost and they're like, from here onwards, you're not going to have phone reception. So I then send a message, I send the route, and then continue.
Does anyone else have tips on like solo cycling? I don't know. I love doing it. I think it's great. But yeah, it can be a bit scary.
Yeah, it's definitely empowering. But tread the waters, maybe do it in a nearby town and just get out points of train stations and places that you can go to if you don't feel comfortable.
Okay.
Right. Are there any other questions, comments, concerns? Otherwise we can wrap things up. We're approaching 9, so thanks everyone for sticking around. Time flies. But this has been recorded, so I'll send the recording to everyone. I'll include, I think the chat was quite useful, and I'll send the chat through as well so people can get the links and stuff. And yeah, thanks again for joining us. We had fun giving you our tips. Cycle touring is great. Hope you do more of it. Yes, you're welcome, Ava. Hope you spend your retirement on the bike.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Okay, I'm going to wrap the session up. Everyone else have a good day.
Everyone.
Team, I'll see you soon. All right. Bye.